Sorry everyone for that. My Wi-Fi here, really bad connection, so it clicked out for a second there. Sorry for the delay here, but we're back here and we're going to be continuing to discuss what's happening here around the NHL. So, definitely there's been a lot of signings. Not sure exactly how much you guys heard of the last few ones, so we'll get to a couple of them here that really just went down that I was talking about here. So, the Edmonton Oilers signed Connor Brown to a 1-year contract extension that have an average annual value of $175,000, and the deal will begin at the start of this upcoming season. So, like I said, 6 on my trade bait list. He's a solid defender, in my opinion. And I think he can definitely improve that team a ton, in my opinion. Brown can probably take the role of Kyler Yamamoto, and in my eyes, he can definitely be a solid option there for the Oilers. So, really, really good there for the Oilers to get a key player like Kyler Yamamoto. Solid player, in my opinion, and I think he can definitely work out well. You've also got a couple of other options. Uh, They've also had a couple of other things happen over the past little while. Radko Gudas has signed a 3-year contract extension that will have an average annual value of $4 million, and the deal will be at the start of next year. Gudas is a solid player, in my opinion. Really, really good physical type player. I think he can definitely work really well with the Ducks. James Reimer signed a 1-year, $1.5 million deal with Detroit, so he'll most likely have a Husso and Reimer tandem next year. You also have a couple of depth signings by the New York Rangers and guys like Tyler Pitlick and Riley Nash. I have a solid option here, in my opinion, in Buffalo. They signed a 3-year deal for former Bruin Connor Clifton on an average annual value of $3.33 million. So that's a pretty high cap, in my opinion. But Clifton, he's definitely a good third pair defenseman. Not sure if he's going to be a good solid top pair defenseman, but I think he could definitely round out that third pair. A little bit expensive, in my opinion, but a pretty good deal, in my opinion. A couple of ones here who just signed. The Canucks have recently just signed 3 guys. They signed young player Tristan Nielsen to an entry-level contract, and he'll have a AAV of $870,000, and they'll begin at the start of next year. Nielsen looks like a pretty good player. They also signed Teddy Bluger, who was with the Pittsburgh Penguins the past couple of years, went with the Golden Knights on their cup run. He signed a 1-year, $1.9 million contract to sign with the Vancouver Canucks. So, good bottom six forward. Could be that third line center they're looking for, so that's a really good signing for the Canucks. Also, Ian Cole can play either side of the defense. He signed a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Canucks. So, solid there. We know the Canucks have been looking for some defensemen, so that's a good option there for the Canucks to get a guy like Cole, who I think would be a really good fit in the blue line. There's been a lot of talk about Cole. Ruakari Charterer, who was a UFA, re-signed with the Ottawa Senators on a 1-year league minimum deal that have an AAV of $775,000. So once again, Charterer, more of an AHL player, can be bottom 6 if need be, but he's more of an AHL player, so that's a solid signing for the Ottawa Senators. Justin Holl, who has been with the Toronto Maple Leafs for the past couple of years. No Leafs fans didn't really like the way that he was playing so much playing time. He signed a 3-year contract with the Detroit Red Wings that'll have an AAV of $3.4 million. So definitely another signing I'm not too fond of, just like the Clifton deal. Holl and Clifton are solid third pair defensemen, but they're not over $3 million players. So that's a decent signing, in my opinion. Holl could definitely be a good third pair defenseman for the Wings, but in my opinion, both Holl and Clifton in Detroit and Buffalo, respectively, those are overpayments, in my opinion. So some pretty good signings here. We're now up to 46 signings on the day, so that's pretty solid. Now up to 48. There have been a couple more signings that have happened. The Anaheim Ducks have signed former Bruin Mike Reilly. We were talking about how Reilly was a solid player who was bought out last year, signs a 1-year, $1 million deal with the Ducks. So as we were talking about, the Ducks need some depth on their defense. Getting a guy like Mike Reilly, I think, is a really good addition for them. And I think Reilly could be a really good second, third pair defenseman in Anaheim, depending on what else they do this offseason. But that's a really good addition, in my opinion, for the Ducks, who are trying to turn this thing around and become a little bit more competitive next year. The Carolina Hurricanes have signed one of my top 10 projected players in Dmitry Orlov. Orlov has signed a 2-year, $7.75 million deal with the Carolina Hurricanes. So that's a pretty steep price. I thought Orlov was going to get an extension maybe between 6 and 7. I was not expecting him to get over $7 million. But Orlov definitely did really well in the playoffs, and towards the end of the season when he was with Boston, he was a really good offensive defenseman. He's going to fit in really well in that top 4. I do wonder if this means that the team will be moving on from Brett Pesce. Not sure. Also not sure if that deal that sounded like it would happen at some point in July with Tony DeAngelo, if that messes anything up there. But Orlov's a really good depth top 4 defenseman, and he'll be really able to work in that top 4 in my opinion. So that's a solid move by the Carolina Hurricanes to bring in Orlov. And number 4 on my trade bait list is now gone. So Orlov, who was number 4, Brown, who was number 6, and Anderson, who was number 10, are all now gone. Anderson's back in Carolina, Orlov signed in Carolina, and Brown signed in Edmonton. So we're going to have to wait and see where 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, and 9 wind up. So going to be 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, and 9 wind up. So going to be interesting to see, but there's definitely been some really good signings up to this point around the NHL. Some other options here, just trying to look at the some tweets that have happened recently, see what other options are here. There's definitely going to be some more options here on the free agent market. It sounds like there's going to be some more free agent signings, so going to be interesting to see where those guys end up. Going to be interesting to see where it's going to be interesting to see where those guys end up. Going to be interesting to see if there's any more trades today. Like we said, we had one small trade between the Capitals and the Canadiens that sent Joel Edmondson to the Washington Capitals in exchange for 3rd and 7th round picks. So going to be interesting to see what happens there. We have had another trade, a small trade here. Number Tuesday, JT Compher and Alex Killorn. What else happens around there? Going to be interesting to see what other moves happen. Brown's move was pretty good. You also have a couple of other possible moves. Like we said, Brown, Orlov, Anderson all signed. 3 of my top 10 on the free agent list have all been gone. So going to be interesting to see what else happens. Going to be interesting to see what other options are here for the free agent market. Going to be interesting to see what other things happen there. So going to be interesting to see. I think this is going to be really interesting for what happens. We've still got a couple of key guys. Will Patrick Kane sign somewhere today? Does Patrice Bergeron announce his retirement? Going to be interesting to see what other things happen. I definitely do think it's going to be interesting to see where these guys go. Like we said, Bertuzzi, Killorn, Compher, Dumba. We've also got a couple of guys down here, like Tarasenko still available. Gostisbehere is also still available. So there's still about 7 guys on my top 10 who are not signed. As we said, Orlov signed a new deal with Carolina. Anderson signed back in Carolina. And Brown's now in the Edmonton Oilers organization. So definitely going to be interesting to see who else gets traded. Definitely still looking like there's going to be some more signings. At this point in time, there's not any signings really at this point in time. We've seen 49 signings. We do have one signing. The Boston Bruins have officially announced that Milan Lucic will be back with the Boston Bruins. That's a 1-year, $1 million deal for Lucic. So definitely a significant pay cut from his $5 million cap that he had the years prior. But it's still a pretty good signing in my opinion for Lucic. As Lucic is a really good bomb 6 physical type forward who I think could definitely work really well with the Bruins, as he's already played there before. So that's a really good signing. Both him and JVR signed 1-year, $1 million deals, and in my opinion, that's a pretty good deal. So once again, most of these guys will probably sign 1 to 2 year deals at cheaper contracts, so that next year they can really cash in when the cap goes up. So I can expect that's why we probably see so many cheap 1 to 2 year deals at this point in time. But definitely, there's still been some guys who have been really paid. You got Orlov. Orlov's been able to make a $7.75 million AAV over the next 2 seasons. Hole's been able to make a $3.4 million AAV over the next 3. Blueger's been able to make a $1.9 million AAV over the next year. Cole, over the next year, $3 million AAV. You've also got Lucic, $1 million. Nyquist, another guy who I missed, has signed a 2-year contract extension, a 2-year contract with the Nashville Predators. They'll have an AAV of $3.185 million. Nyquist is a solid middle six player. Should be able to work well with some of their younger guys in Nashville. So that's a really good deal, in my opinion, for the Nashville Predators. So some pretty good signings here. Like we said, Geekie signed a contract that has an AAV of $2 million. Gudas has signed an AAV of $4 million in Anaheim. You've also got Clifton, $3.3 million AAV. Still some other guys here. You've also got a couple of other guys like O'Reilly, who signed a $4.5 million AAV. So there's definitely a lot of players here who I think are really good. And it definitely sounds like there's going to be some more action over here in the not-too-distant future. It sounds like Carson Soucy, according to a couple of reports, is going to be signing with the Vancouver Canucks. So we know that the Canucks needed some help on the defensive end. They've already brought in Cole. I think Soucy could definitely be a really good addition for the Vancouver Canucks after playing with Seattle over the past couple of years. He's a good, big-bodied forward who should definitely be able to improve that Canucks top four. So that's another interesting signing, in my opinion. There's definitely some other ones here. Going to be interesting to see who else winds up getting signed in the not-too-distant future. It sounds like maybe Erik Karlsson could also be moved at some point today. Could the Leafs maybe move a guy like William Nylander? There's definitely a lot of options here. There's definitely a lot of options here of who could be moved at this point in time. We know that Orlov's in Carolina, Hole's in Detroit, so definitely interesting to see all these teams who have really improved their teams at this point in time. We do have another signings, a few more actually here. So the Montreal Canadiens have signed a couple of depth players. They've signed Philippe Malliot and Brady Keeper. Malliot, a center, Keeper, a right shot defenseman, both to 1-year, 2-way, $725,000 deals. Both are minor league forwards, in my opinion. Could maybe be bottom six forwards if called upon, or third pair defensemen, but mostly which should be able to play in the minors next year. So that's a really good deal for the Canadiens. The the Dallas Stars have signed forward Craig Smith, another 1-year, $1 million deal. He played with Boston and Washington last year in the bottom six. Wasn't overly productive, so I think he could be a solid bottom six forward in Dallas and maybe replace a guy like Luke Glendening. The Washington Capitals are the team who signs Max Pacioretty. Signs him to a 1-year, $2 million deal. So that's a really good deal. Pacioretty suffered a ton of injuries this year, so to see him get a new contract is really good in my opinion. And hopefully Pacioretty can stay healthy this year, and he can be a really good middle six forward in my opinion. We're now up to 54 signings at this point in time. Another signing that just went down, the Winnipeg Jets have brought in Colin Delia on a 1-year, 1-way league minimum deal. Delia is a solid third-string goalie. He could definitely be a backup if need be, and with the Jets' lack of goaltending, in my opinion, he could eventually still be the backup goaltender for the Jets. But it's definitely a really good signing for them. At the very least, he's a solid third stringer. So that's a really good signing for the Winnipeg Jets. Definitely, like we said, we saw some trades earlier today. The Washington Capitals bolstered their blue line by adding Joel Edmondson at half of his salary at $1.75 million cap hit in exchange for a 3rd and 7th round pick. Also, the Devils acquire Colin Miller from the Dallas Stars. Miller's a solid third pair defenseman. In exchange, the Stars get a 2025 5th round pick from New Jersey. So that's a really good deal in my opinion for the Devils and the Stars. I'll definitely love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Which signing do you think's been the best so far? I know Nationals made a couple good ones. The Rangers, the Bruins. Love to hear your thoughts down in the comments or the chat room. And which one of these signings do you think has been the best so far? So definitely love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Definitely some interesting things that have happening over the past little while. Definitely some interesting things that have been happening over the past little while to see where all these guys were going to be ending up. Definitely still seems like there's still some more options here, in my opinion. It sounds like so. Definitely still sounds like there's some more signings to happen here. Not too much right now. It sounds like most of the bigger signings are done for the time being, at least. But it does sound like a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi could be signing in sometime. Alex Killorn. Like I said, we still have 7 of my top 10. We still have 7 of my top 10 on the trade bait list. Still on the free agent markets. On the free agent list, still on the market. So still going interesting to see who goes where, in my opinion. Going to be really interesting to see. Definitely, I think there's definitely been a couple of key guys who have been being able to sign. Like I said, there's been a couple of decent ones. Ryan O'Reilly, who's a solid top 6 center, is now in Nashville. Luke Schenn's joined him after being with Vancouver and Toronto last year. Actually, both Schenn and O'Reilly were deadline acquisitions by Toronto who go to Nashville, so that's really interesting to see. Philadelphia signed a former 2017 first-round pick in Ryan Poehling, who's a decent depth defender, depth forward. You've also got Buffalo signing a couple of decent defensemen, Erik Johnson on a 1-year deal, and Connor Clifton on a 3-year deal. Hole signed a 3-year deal in Detroit. Reimer signed a 1-year deal in Detroit. The Red Wings also extended a couple of other guys earlier in the day. The Bruins have signed a couple of veteran forwards in Lucic and JVR to 1-year, $1 million deals. So those were really good deals for them. The Canucks have signed Bluger. They've signed Colt. Sounds like they're signing Soucy. So they're going to be improving their blue line. They've added a good bottom 6 forward. The Dallas Stars improved their bottom 6 by adding a guy like Craig Smith who can replace Luke Glendening. They've also brought back Joel Hanley. The Panthers have added some more defensive depth, adding Mike Riley and Oliver Ekman-Larsson to their team, as well as adding Kevin Stenlund to their forward group. So they've definitely had a lot of improvements, in my opinion, on that team. So quick rundown of all the players who have signed today. The Red Wings have signed Gustav Lindstrom to a 1-year $950,000 deal. The Senators signed Erik Brannstrom to a 1-year $2 million deal. The Red Wings have signed Matt Luff to a 1-year $775,000 deal. The Ottawa Senators have signed Bernard Docker to a 2-year $805,000 AAV deal. Oliver Ekman-Larsson signed in Florida. Klim Kostin's back in Detroit. Fast and Ranta are both back in Carolina. Shepard's back in Washington. Nieto's gone to Pittsburgh. The Kings have signed Anderson Dolan. The Kings have also signed Mikhail Maltsev. The Leafs signed Ryan Reeves. The Oilers signed Lane Peterson. The Nashville Predators signed Ryan O'Reilly. Stenlund's in Florida after not being qualified by the Jets. Bastian and McLeod are back in Jersey. Van Riemsdyk's in Boston. Wheeler's signed a cheap deal in New York. Quick, same thing. Blackwood's now in San Jose. Fantilli signed his entry-level contract with the Jackets, which I think was pretty good. The Sabres have brought back Jost. The Sens signed a Korpisalo to a major long-term extension. Talbot signed in LA. Burrows has signed in San Jose. Pitlick gets a deal in the New York Rangers organization. Reimer in Detroit. Gudas in Anaheim. Geekie in Boston. Nash in New York. Clifton in Buffalo. Hanley in Dallas. Belzile in New York. Nyquist in Nashville. Lucic in Boston. Cole and Bluger in Vancouver, as well as Nielsen. Charterer in Ottawa. Hole signed in Detroit. Brown signed in Edmonton. Orlov in Carolina. Riley in Florida. Poehling with Philadelphia. Pacioretty with Washington. And then with the last little bit here, Smith with Dallas. Johnson with Buffalo, Mallette and keeper with Montreal, Shen with Nashville, and Delia with Winnipeg. And now another signing here, a 2-year, $1 million extension contract, as the LA Kings have extended forward Andreas Englund to a 2-year, $1 million deal. So that's a solid deal in my opinion for Englund. He can definitely be a pretty decent third-pair defenseman. He showed this year in Colorado and Chicago, so that's a really good extension in my opinion for LA, and I think that's a really good deal. So at this point in time, we're up to 55 contracts signed. We're about just over an hour and a half into the day, so definitely going to be interesting to see what else happens. Definitely going to be interesting to see. What else happens later today? Do we see a big trade happen? We've seen a couple of minor trades. Edmonton's now in Washington for a couple of picks. We've also seen the Devils acquire a guy like Colin Miller for a pick. So we've seen a couple of depth moves. Edmonton a little more than a depth move, but still, mostly we've only seen depth moves so far to this point in time. So going to be interesting to see who else winds up getting moved. I definitely think there's a couple of other options out there. Like I said, my top 10 trade bait list is here. You've got DeBrincat at 1. You've got Scheifele at 2, Hellebuck at 3, Hanifin at 4, and Lindholm at 5. Over here you've got Nylander at 6. You have Carlson at 7. You have Gibson at 8. You have Konechny at 9. And you have Pesce at 10. So definitely, it's something we could still get a pretty big move, in my opinion, on the trade front here. Going to be interesting to see if we are able to get that move. Like I said, still some pretty decent signings so far. Another signing here, Trevor Lewis has gone back to the LA Kings. Lewis signs a 1-year, one-way $775,000 deal with LA. So pretty decent in my opinion. Lewis is a really good bomb 6 forward in my opinion for the LA Kings. So that's a really good signing in my opinion for LA. And Lewis should definitely be a really good depth bottom 6 forward for the LA Kings this year. So once again, Kings are signing depth players with their limited amount of cap space, but they're definitely trying to improve their team enough to try and be really, really aggressive next year for the playoffs. So at this current point in time, they are over the cap with those signings. So they most likely will have to try and make a trade to free up some cap space, in my opinion. Just looking at the Kings here. Just a second here. Just looking at the Kings here. Not very many tradable options here. Like I said, they still have some pretty good options, in my opinion. Some pretty decent options, but not that are overly fantastic. So they're probably going to have to try and move someone down, in my opinion, before they start the season. Or they could try and move a lower-end contract. I don't see them moving anyone on their forward group right now. I don't really see them doing very much, and they don't have anyone on long-term injury reserve. So they're going to need to probably play with a little bit of a handicapped roster next year, LA is, just given the fact of how tight their cap is right now. But they've definitely made some pretty good additions today, picking up guys like Trevor Lewis and Andreas Englund, and a guy like Cam Talbot, who should work well in goal. So some pretty good options there, in my opinion, for the LA Kings. Definitely, we seem to have had some pretty good signings. We're up to 56 at this point in time, and we are just about to enter the 2-hour mark of the free agent list. So going to be interesting to see definitely some interesting signings so far. That I've expected definitely some free agent signings. There were a lot of rumblings last night, so some of these guys, like a Ryan Reeves to Toronto, or a Lucic to Boston, or a Trevor Lewis to LA, were some things we were expecting. But there have definitely been some that we weren't expecting. I was not expecting Orlov to go to Carolina. I was not expecting O'Reilly to go to Nashville. I was not expecting Van Riemsdyk to not only go to Boston, but to sign for such a cheap contract. Wheeler makes sense in New York, but to see him sign for only $800,000 is quite surprising as well. So to see all these guys sign so cheap of a contract is a little bit of a surprise to me. But still, we've had a lot of signings so far, some pretty good depth ones. The ones I question the most at this point in time, like last year we had Goodbranson sign a 4-year, $4 million contract. That was an atrocious deal in my opinion for Columbus. The closest ones I've seen to that at this point in time that were long enough that could be troublesome, in my opinion, would be Justin Holl signing in Detroit, 3 years at $3.4 million, or Connor Clifton signing 3 years at $3.33 with Buffalo. No offense to them, they're solid NHL players. They're really good third-pair defensemen, and in my opinion, they could do really well. But on the contrary, they're both not $3 million players, and to give them over $3 million, I think is not a great option for them. So, in my opinion, those two are probably the worst contracts I've seen today. But there's still going to be some other ones. So, we're probably going to have some more not overly great signings. We do have another contract that has been signed. The San Jose Sharks have brought in former Florida Panther and Detroit Red Wing forward Giovanni Smith on a 2-year contract extension. They'll have an average annual value of $800,000, and the deal will begin at the start of next year. So for Smith, he's a solid, pretty good bottom six forward. He's more of a checking forward, but he can work really, really well in the bottom six. So in my opinion, that's a really good deal for the Sharks. They need to get someone who can play in the bottom six. They needed some more physicality in that group, in my opinion. So I think adding a guy like Smith for the next couple of years is a pretty good deal. And he should be able to be a really good, consistent bottom six forward, in my opinion, for the Sharks. So that's a really good deal for the Sharks. Definitely going to be interesting to see what other moves they wind up doing. Are they going to be able to trade Erik Karlsson today? Going to be interesting to see. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Does Erik Karlsson get dealt today or this offseason, or do the Sharks have to try and keep him beyond this offseason? So definitely love to hear your thoughts on if Karlsson gets moved today. Definitely interesting to see. As you can see, he's on my top 10 trade bait list here. On 1, we have Alex DeBrincat. At 2 and 3, we have Scheifele and Hellebuck. At 4 5, we have Hanifin and Lindholm. And then you have 6, Nylander. 7 is Erik Karlsson. 8, Gibson. 9, Konechny. And 10, Pesce. So going to be interesting to see how many of these guys wind up getting traded. There's been a lot of goalie movement at this point in time. You've got James Reimer. There's been a lot of goalie movement at this point in time. Just looking at the goalie market here at this point. So far today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 goalies have been signed. So at this point in time, the Red Wings have been able to sign James Reimer. He's going to be a good tandem goaltender with the Wings over the next little while. Talbot in LA, he should be a good tandem goalie with Copley next year. Korpisalo with Ottawa, he should be a good tandem goalie with Forsberg next year. Anderson and Ranta remain in Carolina. Those two should be really good goalies again for the Carolina Hurricanes next year with Kochetkov. Quick signed as the backup in the Rangers organization. That's an amazing deal for the Rangers. You've also got Mackenzie Blackwood, who should be a good tandem goaltender with the San Jose Sharks. So that's another good option. And then you've also got a couple of depth guys in Hunter Shepard, who should be a good third stringer for the Capitals, and Colin Delia, who should either be the backup or third stringer for the Jets. So we've had a couple of really good goaltender moves at this point in time, but I still think there's a couple of goalies who could be moved on the trade market, and there's still some available on the free agent market. As you know, the top goaltender, in my opinion, in Tristan Jarry on the free agent market, is still available for a possible trade option, for free agent option. You've got guys like Gibson and Hellebuck and Vladar, and you've also got a guy like maybe Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, or if they were to trade him, Carter Hart, who could also be moved in the goalie market. So definitely love to hear your thoughts on where you think some of these other goalies will wind up. As we know, Reimer's now in Detroit, Talbot's in LA, Korpisalo's in Ottawa, Anderson and Ranta are back in Carolina, and Blackwood's in San Jose. So going to be interesting to see what other moves happen today. We do have a couple more signings here. The Buffalo Sabres have brought back goalie Dustin Tokarski. Tokarski signed a 1-year deal last offseason with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He has now signed a 1-year, 2-way deal with the Sabres. They'll have AAV of $675,000. With him signing, that makes me wonder if maybe they are going to try and trade a guy like Comrie or Pekka Luukkonen in the not too distant future. They have 3 really good goaltenders, in my opinion, right now, so it would not surprise me at all if they were to move on and have Tokarski be the third stringer. And Carson Soucy has indeed signed with the Canucks. He signed a 3-year, $3.25 million deal with the Vancouver Canucks. So Soucy, really good, solid. He's played mostly in the second or third pair for the Kraken, so I think he could definitely do really well there again with the Canucks. So that's definitely a couple of really good additions for Vancouver, in my opinion, in Soucy and Cole. So definitely interesting to see where some of these other guys sign. Definitely still got 7 players here on my trade bait list who, at this point in time, definitely still got 7 players here on my trade bait list who, at this point in time, have not been able to sign. So going to be interesting to see where all these guys wind up going. Definitely got a couple of other options here for guys who could definitely be moved. Still no signings as of yet, but there's still a lot of rumors that there could be going a couple of options here. So going to be interesting to see who goes where. Still a couple of good offensive defensemen and guys like Dumba and Klingberg. A couple of other solid defensive defensemen and guys like Graves and Dumoulin. You've got a couple of elite, not elite level. There's no elite level for like a Goudreau in this draft free agent class, but there's a couple of decent group forwards in this free agent class. In guys like Bertuzzi and Killorn. You've also got a guy like Bertuzzi and Killorn. You've also got a guy like Comfer. So there's a ton of options here. Definitely sounds like there's going to be some more signings over the next couple of hours. Like I said, I'm going to be here for about the next hour until about noonish Pacific time, and then I'm going to be going off after that. I will be definitely doing my usual videos 3 times a week, so Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday starting next week. But with the amount of signings that there will be, with the amount of trades that will most likely be over the next little while, I'll still be doing some of the smaller videos discussing some things that have happened. So don't expect me to stop doing any of those smaller videos, but definitely expect me to go back to doing my 3 videos a week next week with the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday thing. So going to be interesting to continue to go back after this busy week of free agent frenzy and the draft. So going to be interesting to see, but definitely it's been a really fun day so far. We have 59 signings as of right now. Definitely it's been really, really busy at this point in time. We've had 59 signings, a couple of trades, so definitely it's been a really busy free agent frenzy for the first 2 hours of it. So going to be interesting to see how hour 3 goes, and going to be interesting to see how the rest of the day goes, and see if do we see a major trade, do we see another thing. Going to be really interesting to see, but I do think there's going to be some pretty big moves at this point in time. You got 7 of my top 10 on the my free agent list are still there. You got Bertuzzi at number 1. You have Comfort at number 2. Killorn at number 3. Dumba at number 5. At number 7, you have Jari. At number 8, you have Tarasenko. And at number 9, you have Gostisbehere. 10th on my list was Frederik Andersen. He's re-signed in Carolina. 6th on my list was Connor Brown. He signed a 1-year deal in Edmonton. And Orlov, who was 4th on my list, to sign a 2-year deal in Carolina. So a couple of the guys have been moved, but it's going to be interesting to see where some of these bigger free agents go. Killorn, Bertuzzi, and Comfer, I think, are the class of this year's draft class, of this year's free agent class. So definitely interesting to see where these guys go. Definitely sounds like there's still some more signings to happen. At this point in time, it sounds like there's still nothing really going on in the signing market, but there probably will be eventually some more rumors that are circulating. Like, I do wonder about possible trade options. Definitely let me know down in the comments. Do you think a guy like Erik Karlsson could be dealt today? Definitely going to be a complicated trade, and definitely something that it's going to be interesting to see. But I do think Karlsson could be a guy who's dealt today. Could Konechny be dealt? Would Hanifin? Would Lindholm? Would Hellebuck? Would Scheifele? So it's going to be interesting to see. But it sounds like there's a lot of possibilities of trades today. It sounds like there could be some other possibilities of things. Sounds like Shattenkirk could be heading somewhere today too. Going to be interesting to see where. Definitely, there's still some options here on the for trade market. You got guys like Garland, you got D'Angelo, Grzelcyk, Barabanov, Olofsson, Zadar, maybe a Blues defenseman like a Parayko or a Crew. Not guaranteeing that a lot of things will happen, but it definitely sounds that there's going to be a ton of things that happen. So going to be interesting to see what else happens. I would expect some more signings in not just in future. And as I say that, there's another signing that happens. Not a free agent, a UFA, but a decent signing here, as the Florida Panthers have signed young prospect Gregory Denisenko to a 2-year, $775,000 deal that will have an AAV of to a 2-year deal that have an AAV of $775,000. So that's a really good deal in my opinion for Denisenko. He's a solid prospect, former first-round pick a couple years ago, and I think he could fit in really well in the top 9 as early as this year for the Florida Panthers. So a great signing there for Denisenko in Florida, and I think he should definitely continue to excel, but once again, not too much happening at this point in time. Definitely sounds like there's been some pretty good signings at this point in time. None that are overly significant at this point. You've got a couple of good options here. Just looking at some of these teams who have done some things in the trade free agent market up to this point. We're going team by team. So for the Ducks, they've made one signing today, and that is that they've brought in Radko Gudas. He should be a really good, solid defenseman. We know the Ducks need some defensemen. He's a tough, physical, hard to play against defenseman, and he could definitely be a good insulator if the Ducks over the next couple of years bring up guys like Mintyukov or Zellweger. So I think that's a really good deal for the Ducks. For the Arizona Coyotes, at this point in time, they have not made any signings today. For the Boston Bruins, they've made some pretty good signings. They've brought in Milan Lucic on a 1-year, $1 million deal. They've brought in James Van Riemsdyk on a 1-year, $1 million deal. And they've brought in Morgan Geekie on a 2-year deal that have an AAV of $2 million. So, once again, a couple of decent players. Lucic should be a good fourth-line forward. Geekie should be a good bomb six forward. And JVR should be a good middle six forward. And those guys all don't come at too much of a cap hit. So, those are really good signings, in my opinion, for the Boston Bruins. The Buffalo Sabres have beefed up their their defense, by signing guys like Eric Johnson and Connor Clifton. Johnson to a 1-year deal, Clifton to a 3-year deal. They've also brought back Tyson Josephs, their fourth-line center, and have gotten some more depth in the goaltending position with Dustin Tokarski. So some pretty good moves there for the Buffalo Sabres. Calgary has not been able to make a signing at this point in time. The Blackhawks have not made a signing at this point in time. The Colorado Avalanche at this point in time have also not been making any signings. The Columbus Blue Jackets have made one signing today, and it was a big one, signing Adam Fantilli to his entry-level contract. So he'll most likely be a top 6 forward next year with the Columbus Blue Jackets in the top 6 role as a top 6 center. So I think Fantilli should be fantastic in that type of a role. On top of that, the Dallas Stars have been really active. They brought in a good bomb 6 forward in Craig Smith on a 1-year, $1 million deal, and then signed Joel Hanley to a 2-year cheap deal. So some pretty good signings there for the Dallas Stars. Detroit's been really active. They brought back Gustav Lindstrom. They've brought back Matt Luff. After not qualifying him, they brought back Clint Costin. So they signed a couple of decent players there. They've also signed Justin Holl to improve their defensive end. They've also signed James Reimer, who should be a really good 10 netminder next year for the Detroit Red Wings. So some pretty good signings there for the Wings so far today. With the Edmonton Oilers, they've made 2 signings, signing Wade Peterson, who should be a good bomb 6 forward, plus Connor Brown, who should be a fantastic middle 6 addition, especially for league minimum value. So that's a really good signing there for the Oilers. The Panthers have been really busy today. They re-signed prospect Denisenko. They've brought in Kevin Stenlund, who's a solid bomb 6 forward, and then they brought in some more defensive help in Mike Riley and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So some pretty good signings there for the Florida Panthers. The LA Kings have also made some pretty good signings. They signed Cam Talbot to a 1-year, $1 million deal. They signed a couple of bottom 6 forwards in Anderson Dolan, who they didn't give a qualifying offer to yesterday. Maltsev Lewis to 1-year deals at league minimum value. Also signed a good defenseman in Andreas Englund to a 2-year, $1 million deal. So a really, really good deal in my opinion for the Kings. The Wild have not made any signings at this point in time. The Canadiens have signed a couple of depth guys in Keeper and Millette to 1-year league minimum deals. The Nashville Predators have really been an active team today. They've brought in Luke Shen, Gustav Nyquist, and Ryan O'Reilly. Nyquist on a 2-year deal with the AAV of 3.185. Shen on a 3-year deal with the AAV of 2.75, and O'Reilly on a 4-year deal with the AAV of 4.5. So Nashville's definitely really improving that team. The Devils were able to get Bastian and McLeod. Bastian back on a 2-year deal, McLeod back on a 1-year deal. So the Devils definitely making some moves today. The Islanders at this point in time have not made any moves, but we don't really know that with Lou Lamoriello there. The Rangers have been definitely making some moves. They've added Blake Wheeler to add to their top 6. They've added Jonathan Quick to add as a backup goalie, and then they've added some depth forwards in Pitlick, Nash, and Bill Zeal. So they've been definitely a really active team this year so far in free agency. The Senators, they've definitely made some moves. They've re-extended defenseman Brandstrom. They've re-extended defenseman Bernard Docker. So those two have been really good. They've signed a good bottom six players in Josh Curry and Ruark Charterer, who are both good bottom 6 forwards, most likely AHL forwards, so I wouldn't expect them to get much playing time at the NHL level, but they're both still really good forwards. And you've also got a goalie in Jonas Korpisalo signed 5 years at $4 million. So another really good deal for the Senators. The Flyers, at this point in time, have only made one signing, bringing in Ryan Poehling, who should be a good bottom 6 forward next year. The Penguins have made one signing as well, bringing in bottom 6 forward Matt Nieto, so that's a really good signing for the Penguins. He worked really well with Colorado and San Jose last year. The Sharks have been adding some depth, getting Blackwood back in the net for the next 2 years. They signed Kyle Burrows to a 3-year deal. They signed Giovanni Smith to a 2-year deal, so they've been definitely bulking up a little bit. The Seattle Kraken, to this point in time, have not made a deal. The St. Louis Blues, to this point in time, have not made a deal. The Tampa Bay Lightning, to this point in time, have signed one player, and that is Connor Sheary. Sheary got a 3-year contract extension of AAV of $2 million. So, in my opinion, Sheary, who was a really good forward last year, should be able to replace a guy like Colton or a guy like Killorn on the forward group. So, that's a really good deal for the Tampa Bay Lightning, who should use Sheary as a middle 6 forward. The Leafs have signed Ryan Reeves to a 3-year deal that have an AAV of $1.385 million. So, that was a really good deal for the Leafs. The Canucks, they signed Carson Seuss to a 3-year deal. They also signed Ian Cole and Teddy Bluger to a 1-year deal, as well as Tristan Nielsen. So they've been a very busy team this free agency. The Golden Knights, not overly active. They haven't made any signings at this point in time. The Washington Capitals, they've made a couple, getting some depth in goal with Hunter Shepard, as well as getting a good solid middle 6 winger and Max Pacioretty on a cheaper deal at $2 million. And then the Jets have brought in depth goalie Colin Delia. So not overly surprising that those guys are there. Definitely. Besides that, the Ottawa Senators have also brought in Imama, who was a prospect with the Arizona Coyotes for the longest time, on a 1-year, 2-way deal, $725,000 deal, more of a minor league forward, but I think could maybe be a good bottom 6 forward. So you got Imama just signed, Curry just signed with the Ottawa Senators, good minor league forwards. You've also got a guy like Connor Sheary, who's just signed in Tampa. He should be a good middle 6 forward, in my opinion. So there's definitely been some pretty good signings so far, in my opinion. 63 in total at this point in time. Signings at the NHL for the NHL in the free agency. So some pretty good signings so far. Still have 7 players up on the free agent board in my top 10 who have not gone. We still have 10 players in my on my trade bait board who have still not gone. So going to be interesting to see what else happens today. Definitely going to be interesting to see. I really do think we're in for really a big treat to see who goes where. Probably some of these players won't be signed today. We'll probably get some more news and rumors and stuff like that over the next couple of days, discussing where could this guy go, where could this guy go. Definitely. So probably not all of these guys are going to be signed past today, but there's going to be a couple of them. So definitely interesting to see, and I can't wait to see some of these guys and where they wind up going. So going to be interesting to see where all these guys wind up going. Definitely feel like there could be still some trades. Not going to be overly confident that they are, but I really do hope there's some trades, as there's not been very many trades over the past couple of days. I mean, I did my live video. I was hoping for trades on draft day. There was nothing. On draft day live number 2, there was not really much. On the yesterday, when there was a lot of speculation, there could be a lot of moves. There was nothing. So hopefully there's more than just the Miller and Edmondson deals, in my opinion. And hopefully we get some pretty significant deals, whether it be Nylander or Konechny or something else. There's been another signing, Patrick Brown, who spent last year splitting time with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Ottawa Senators, was a really good bottom six checking forward, has signed a 2-year contract with the Boston Bruins. They'll have an AAV of $800,000, and they'll begin at the start of next year. So once again, Brown, solid bottom six forward for the Boston Bruins. He should be able to be a really good player there. So I think that's a really good move for the Bruins, and in my eyes, that's a really good signing there, and he should be able to be a really good bottom six forward. So once again, adding to the depth that the Bruins have been adding, guys like James Van Riemsdyk. They've added a guy like James Van Riemsdyk, Milan Lucic, Morgan Geekie. Now they have Brown. So that bottom six is starting to look a little bit better than it was before. But still, losing Bertuzzi, losing Hall, possibly losing Bergeron, possibly losing Krejci. If they lose all of those guys, that Bruins team looks a lot weaker. And even though they got some pretty good depth with a guy like JVR and a guy like Milan Lucic and a guy like Morgan Geekie and Patrick Brown, it's not a fantastic, ideal situation for the Boston Bruins. So, going to be interesting to see what else they do today. Could they try and move maybe one more contract? Could they try and move a guy like Matt Grzelcyk with their depth on defense? I think that's a possibility. But at this point in time, we have 64 signings. No more to really discuss at this point. Definitely love to hear your thoughts down in the comments on which signing you think has been the best. Is it O'Reilly with Nashville, Schenn with Nashville, Orlov with Carolina? Carolina signed their 2 goalies back. Talbot in LA, Reimer in Detroit, JVR in Boston. Definitely love to hear your thoughts on who you think is the best signing up to this point in free agency. Definitely, there's a lot, I mean a lot of still pretty quality free agents still on the board at this point in time. If I go back to my 50 player trade list, as you can see my top 10, but some of the other guys who I listed as possible trade candidates, like we said, O'Reilly's gone, Wheeler's gone, both of those guys are gone. Michael Bunting's another one who I do wonder. He's a good, solid middle six winger. I know he's had his problems with a lot of stuff, but he's still a really good point producer, and I think in time he could definitely still be a really good player. So I think there's going to be some teams interested in him. Jonathan Toews with the not going to be back with the Chicago Blackhawks. He's still a solid second-line center in my opinion, so I do wonder if someone maybe takes a chance on him. Matt Duchene was bought out yesterday night by the Nashville Predators. He's still a solid middle six winger, so I wonder if there's a team who gives him a shot. Ryan Graves was not brought back by the New Jersey Devils. Is a solid top 4 defenseman, so I do wonder if he gets signed somewhere. Scott Mayfield with the Islanders, solid third pair defenseman, so I do wonder if he gets signed somewhere. Jason Zucker, decent middle six forward, so he could definitely be signed somewhere. Patrick Kane's going to start the season injured, we know that, but he's still a solid player. I do wonder if there's a couple of teams out there who have interest in him. Kailer Yamamoto was bought out yesterday. I do wonder if he gets signed somewhere. So it's going to be interesting to see. I do think there's still a variety of different players on the free agent market who could be signed in the not too distant future. And like I said, there's still some solid trade options as well. So we're going to have to wait and see. But it sounds like there's still some pretty big things that are going to be happening today. Could Carlson be moved? So definitely, I think it's been pretty good. Yeah, I definitely think Zucker is a pretty good player. I mean, last year he had pretty good season with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Put up some pretty decent point totals. Now, he was playing with Evgeny Malkin, so, I mean, Malkin would definitely boost his point totals, but, I mean, he did have a pretty good season last year, putting up 48 points, which was one of his better seasons in 78 games. So I definitely do think Zucker's a really good player. Playing in the middle six, I definitely do think he could definitely be a really good playmaker for some of these teams, giving up some assists. So I definitely think Zucker could definitely be a really good addition to some team, and would definitely be wondering if maybe a team out there would be willing to really take a chance on him. I don't think he'll get his cap hit that he had last time. I don't think he'll get $5 million on a new deal, but I think he could be a good 2 to 3 year deal at around $3 to $4 million. I think Zucker could be a good value asset for some of these teams. So I definitely think Zucker could definitely be a good asset for a team. So I do think Zucker's a name we have to watch out for over the next day or two to possibly see if he gets signed somewhere. Still, at this point in time, 64 signings. So far at this point in time, we're now just over 2.25 hours into this free agent frenzy. Definitely, I think some of the better teams at this point in time who've definitely been improving, in my opinion. Hurricanes, they kept their goaltending tandem. They added Dmitry Orlov. They look a lot better. I do wonder if they try and go after a forward. They need some more help in the forward group, but so far they've had a pretty solid free agency. Nashville, we talked about how they moved out all their players to try and get some cap space, and they used that cap space to sign guys like Ryan O'Reilly and Gustav Nyquist and Luke Shen. Shen should be a solid top 4 defenseman. O'Reilly a solid top 6 forward. Center, something they needed, and their Nyquist should be a good middle 6 forward. So once again, Nashville's done really well, good in my opinion. The Rangers, they continue to add good depth pieces and guys like Tyler Pitlick, Belzile, Nash. Definitely think the Rangers did win with Blake Wheeler $800,000. I'll tell you right flat out, I thought Wheeler would get something between $2 and $3 million. So I definitely did think that Wheeler signing $800,000 AAV with the Rangers was an absolute steal, in my opinion. Playing with a guy like Zibanejad or a guy like maybe a Artemi Panarin, Wheeler should be able to put up, in my opinion, between 40, 50, maybe even 60 points next year. So Wheeler, in my opinion, is a really good signing, a really good steal, in my opinion, for the Rangers, and I think he should really work well on the right wing with the New York Rangers. So that definitely, I think the Rangers are gotta be one of the winners, in my opinion, for signing Wheeler. They also signed Quick as the backup to Shesterkin. That was another really good signing. I think Quick should definitely be a really good backup. And then they also signed 3 key depth pieces. So once again, I think the Rangers are one of my winners, in my opinion, at this point in time. Carolina has done some really good things. Nashville has done some really good things. Vancouver, after moving on from all those defensemen, acquiring Soucy, acquiring Cole, getting Blueger, who's a solid third line center. I think they've done a really good job, in my opinion, too. So definitely the Canucks have done really, really well, in my opinion, and I think they can definitely be a really good team. And I definitely think that all of those additions definitely make them a little bit more better and better defensively, especially next year. So I definitely think the Canucks have been a really good team so far this free agency. Definitely Boston, getting James Van Riemsdyk at $1 million, I think was a steal as well. They got Lucic at $1 million. They got Geeky at $2 million. They also added a guy like Patrick Brown. So they've done fantastic, in my opinion. And I think they are going to be an extremely talented, hard to play against team again next year. Maybe not as talented as this year, and definitely if they don't replace guys like Hall or Bertuzzi, and if Krejci and Bergeron leave, they're going to be a lot less effective offensively. But I think getting guys like James Van Riemsdyk and Lucic on short-term cheap deals, a guy like Geeky and a guy like Brown, I think they've done really well given the circumstances. So at this point in time, those are some of my teams who I think have done really, really well. Still looking for some of these teams to try and make some more signings. At this point in time, we still have 64 signings, and we still have 2 trades. Once again, I think there's going to be some more trades at some points, whether it be today or a little bit later in the future. So far at this point in time, Edmondson has been traded to Washington for a couple of second picks, one a third, one a 7th, and Colin Miller, who was a good depth defenseman in Dallas, was able to be traded to the New Jersey Devils, so for a 5th round pick in 2025. So far, not too many significant moves. I mean, Edmondson's a pretty good defender, but in my opinion, not overly significant moves. And so far, on my top 10 trade bait list, none of the guys have been moved. As you can see, DeBrincat's number 1, Scheifele's 2, Hellebuck 3, Hannafin's 4, Lindholm is 5. Down here, Nylander's 6, Carlson's 7, Gibson's 8, Konechny's 9, and Pesce's 10. So I do wonder if any of these guys wind up getting dealt today, or if they get dealt at some point in the offseason. I do think there's still a lot of talk that maybe they could. So definitely going to be interesting to see, but I definitely think there's going to be some more trades at some point today. There's going to be probably a lot more free agent signings, but there's probably also going to be some signings that don't get done today and will be getting done over the next little while. So going to be interesting to see, but at this point in time, we have 64 signings. We've had a couple of trades, and we've had some pretty good moves at this point in time. So hopefully we get some more signings in the not too distant future. We're now close to the 2.5 hour mark into the free agent frenzy, and definitely it's been really, really good. So going to be interesting to see what else happens today. Definitely, I think we're probably going to see something, whether it be a trade or big signing. Usually some of those bigger signings happen, and then you start to see a trickle-down effect. So I wonder if a guy like Bertuzzi or Comfort or Killorn sign, maybe one of those other guys wind up getting the next ones. I do wonder about a guy like Dumba or Gostisbehere after Orlov signing his 2 year, $7.75 million deal. Do the guys like Dumba and Gostisbehere now have a sort of a range as to where they can sign for? Klingberg is also a pretty good offensive defenseman, in my opinion. So there's definitely a lot of options, in my opinion, for still a good offensive defenseman. There's still a lot of good, solid forwards. You still have a solid couple of goalies. Tristan Jarry, who is 7th on my list, the best goalie, in my opinion, in the free agency class, is still available. So there's still a lot of options here for guys who could definitely be moving on. So going to be interesting to see. Going to really, really be interesting, but I definitely think that we could still see some big signings today. We could also see some trades, whether it be one of these guys that I have in my top 10, whether it be another guy I have in my top 50, or whether it be someone lower end on the scale, like a Miller. Whether it be one of these trades, I definitely think there's still going to be some trades. So going to be interesting to see, but I definitely expect some more signings. I definitely expect some more trades over the next little while. So going to be interesting to see, but at this point in time, still nothing, still 64 signings. Not really overly much speculation stuff right now. At this point in time, you still have a pretty good idea of how any teams have improved. Radko Gudas is now a member of the Anaheim Ducks. The Panthers have gotten a couple of decent depth defensemen. There's definitely been a couple of really good teams. Some teams I still think could do something would be a team like Vegas. I think Vegas could definitely still use a couple of forwards. Seattle, I think, could definitely still use a depth defenseman, maybe, or something like that. I do wonder about Chicago or Arizona if they try and get into the sweepstakes for one of those bigger time players. We know Chicago's been trying to improve their team on the fly. We know Arizona's looking to become more competitive. They both have tons of cap space. I wonder if they try and take a swing at one of these top-end free agents. Definitely think there's some other options out there for some pretty good deals, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I do think there's going to be a ton of more trades, whether it be later today and free agent signings, whether it be later today or into tomorrow. It's definitely going to be interesting to see. But we've had a pretty good quality of draft free agency so far. I know there was a lot of talk earlier on that there was not going to be too much free agency talk. Not too many good free agents on this draft class, but after the not qualifying offers, after the buyouts, after all those stuff, it seems like this draft free agent class is not overly bad. So definitely interesting to see. I think the two worst contracts I've seen today, in my opinion, would be the Justin Holl and Connor Clifton contracts. Holl signing 3 years at $3.4 million in Detroit, with I think L, in my opinion. Holl's a really good third-pair defenseman, but he's not worth $3 million. Same thing with Clifton, signing 3 years at $3.33 million with the Buffalo Sabres. Once again, solid defender, but not a $3 million player. So in my opinion, those are probably the two worst contracts. Ones that I don't think will age well over the next year or two. But once again, they're only $3 million. So it's they're only for 3 years. So yeah, Gudas's contract is, I guess, a little bit bad too at $4 million. But the Ducks really do need to get to the cap floor, and the Ducks also really needed a good defenseman. They do probably still need a couple more defensemen. So I definitely do think that Gudas, while his contract isn't overly great, The Ducks will probably need it for the next 2 years just to try and get to the cap floor, and then at that point, if it's really that bad, they can try and trade it for like 50% salary retained. Meanwhile, Buffalo and Detroit are starting to get more cap space, are starting to try and get more competitive, and I think those contracts will probably age a little bit worse than Gudas's. But definitely, yeah, Gudas is probably another one whose contract will not age overly well. So definitely, I think Gudas's is not going to age overly well. But I think, given the fact that Hull and Clifton were more third pair defensemen, I think Gudas could also step into a top four role. But given the fact that Clifton and Hull are more third pair defensemen, I think those two contracts are a little bit worse than Gudas's. But still, all three of those contracts with those pretty solid defensemen, I'm not a fan of, in my opinion. So definitely, it's been really interesting. Definitely think that there's still some key guys still haven't signed. You've got a guy like Michael Bunting, who I think could still find a home somewhere. Vladimir Tarasenko still hasn't found a home. I know he's injured to start the season, but Patrick Kane, I think, could be a guy of interest somewhere. Definitely, there's still a couple of options for solid free agent upgrades. So I do wonder what happens. Definitely love to hear your thoughts on which free agent you think is probably going to be the next big one to be signed. Definitely going to be interesting to see. But at this point in time, we do have one more new signing that happened. Not overly significant, but the Ottawa Senators have signed depth forward Matthew Highmore. Highmore's a good winger, signed him to a 1-year league minimum deal. So Highmore can play in the bottom six. He's more of a minor league forward at this point in time. He split time over the past couple of years between St. Louis and Vancouver, so I think he'd definitely be a good minor league forward for Ottawa. And maybe if he plays well enough, he can replace a guy like Gambrell or Gauthier, who they didn't replace. So that's a pretty good depth signing, in my opinion, for the Ottawa Senators. But once again, nothing too significant to talk about at this point in time. Another small signing that's happened with the Ottawa Senators here, forward Garrett Pilon, as a center, has signed a 1-year league minimum deal as well. So once again, depth player, most likely will start this next year in the minors. Could be a call-up option if the Senators run into injuries. So definitely, it does seem like there's going to be a ton of options here for the Ottawa Senators as they continue to add a lot of key depth pieces to their forward group. So, I mean, they've added Charterer, they've added Curry, they've added Highmore now and Pilon as well. So they definitely add a lot of depth on their forward group. So not too bad, but nothing too significant. And I do wonder for Ottawa if Alec DeBrincat gets traded in the not too distant future, as they haven't been able to work out a contract extension. They don't want to sign him to a 1-year deal, and I really do think that they have to try and find a trade for him in the not too distant future before their arbitration case is going to be done at sometime in late July or early August. So I have to think that DeBrincat is probably going to be traded within the next week or two. Going to be interesting to see where he goes. In my opinion, I think one of the more likely options would be either Nashville or Dallas, but I think there's a couple of other options out there as well. So it is pretty exciting for all the female players to get their new league too. So that is a pretty good thing for all the female players out there to get their new professional hockey league, and I do think that is pretty good too. So definitely good for those people. Definitely good for the women out there to get their own professional league to play hockey in. So definitely do think that's pretty good. But definitely getting back to some of the signings that have happened. Once again, really, really good at this point in time. We do have another big signing here, and this is a pretty big one in my opinion. Matt Duchene, who was bought out yesterday by the Nashville Predators. 6'4", can play center, can play wing, has just with the before. But this is something I really do like. The Stars, like I said, need a top. Duchene's a really good playmaking player, and in my opinion, he could be a really good forward. So, in my opinion, Duchene to Dallas is a really good option, and I think Duchene should definitely be a fantastic option for the Dallas Stars in the middle six. I think Duchene could play with a guy like Tyler Seguin. He could play with a guy like Wyatt Johnston. He could play with a ton of different options. So, in my opinion, that option for Dallas is fantastic, and I do think this is going to be a really good deal for Duchene. I definitely think that he was nowhere close to producing at an $8 million pace on Nashville. So I think the Preds buying him out was the right decision. But I do think Duchene's still a really good middle six forward. So in my opinion, Duchene in Dallas, playing with a guy like Seguin or Johnston or Marchment or someone like that in the middle six, I think Duchene should be a really good fit for the Dallas Stars. So in my opinion, that's a fantastic signing for the Dallas Stars, and they continue to do really good moves in free agency and continue to improve this team. And once again, it would not surprise me at all if they were a cup contender again next year and they were maybe one of the teams that went to the cup. So once again, I think this is a really good move for Matt Duchene, and I think this is going to be a really good move for the Dallas Stars as well. So a really good signing there for Dallas. And we've got another signing here, and this one's for the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings have brought in bottom six forward Daniel Sprong, who wasn't qualified by the Seattle Kraken, on a 1-year, $2 million deal with the Detroit Red Wings. That will be a really good bottom six forward addition for the Detroit Red Wings. So, in my opinion, that's a really good steal. Sprong playing in a bottom six role with the Kraken. Sprong in a bottom six role has done absolutely fantastic with the Seattle Kraken. Put up 20 goals, put up 40 points. Really hoping that Sprong has done really good in a bottom six role, putting up 20 goals and 40 points. I think in Detroit, in a bottom six, with maybe a couple of other really good offensive players, he could do fantastic. So in my opinion, Sprong was going to be doing absolutely phenomenal with the Detroit Red Wings. I think that's a steal of a deal at $2 million. So really good for Sprong. Winnipeg hasn't really done much today. I'm quite surprised. I thought they would have at least maybe traded a guy like Scheifele or Hellebuck, or at least try to sign some more depth to their forward group. So going to be interesting to see what Winnipeg does over the next little while and see how they try and reconstruct that team. I definitely think they did make out really well in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, but it's going to be interesting to see really what they do with the rest of that team. I mean, they brought up Wheeler last night. They got rid of Dubois now. They brought in guys like Velarde and Iafallo. They did sign a depth goalie in Colin Delia today, so not overly significant move, but definitely I think next couple of weeks going to be really interesting to see what Winnipeg does to that roster. So going to be interesting to see. Definitely do like the Sprong and the Duchene signings in Detroit and Dallas. But at this point, not really anything else to discuss at this point in time. When it comes to signings, still only 2 trades on the day. At this point in time, still nothing really on the rumor part of the speculations part of things. So going to be interesting to see, but I definitely do think that the Jets have to try and do something to improve that team, or to try and just make sure they can don't lose Scheifele and Hellebuck for nothing. I definitely do think there's been some really, really good teams and signings today, especially guys like Duchene and Dallas. That was a really good signing for the Stars. Stars have really improved their forward group. I do like how the Nationals really improved their team. Carolina's improved their team. Vancouver's defense looks a ton better than it did a little while ago. Carolina was able to keep their 2 goaltenders and improve their defense. So definitely, I think there's definitely been a couple of teams who have been really good in improving. I think a couple teams to watch out for, Anaheim. I think Anaheim will be looking to try and improve their defensive end even more than just adding Gudas. So I could see Anaheim do something. Calgary hasn't done anything. I'm quite surprised about that. I do wonder if Calgary tries and goes out and maybe adds one of those top 3 forwards on my free agent list. So I do wonder if Calgary does something like that. Edmonton signed Brown. I don't really expect them to do much else. LA's basically capped out, so I don't expect them to do much else. San Jose, like I said, Carlson possibly being dealt, I think is the biggest move they're going to try and make. They could also try and move a couple of some of their forwards like a Barabanov or a LeBanc. I do try and wonder if Seattle tries and adds a defenseman. Definitely there's a couple of other teams. Vancouver, maybe they try and add another defenseman. Vegas, I just do wonder if they try and add another forward. There's definitely been a couple of other options out there. Winnipeg, I do think they'll try and maybe get a little bit more of a stronger backup in net for the Jets. Maybe try and improve that forward group a little bit. I think Dallas could probably try and also improve that team a little bit. Nashville, maybe try and add a couple more pieces. I do really want to know where Compher, Killorn, and Bertuzzi go. I think those are the 3 best forwards, in my opinion. So Killorn, solid really good middle six forward who can definitely produce. Bertuzzi, I think, is a solid top six goal scorer who should definitely be a really good addition to whoever gets him. Comfort had a really good season this year, and I think he could definitely be an amazing addition there too. So it's going to be interesting to see, but definitely it sounds like there could be some more signings today. I do wonder if one of those guys are some of their big signings that happened. We do have one more signing here, and that is that Troy Stecher with the who was with the Calgary Flames after playing with Arizona last year, is back in Arizona. Stecher signs a 1-year, $1.1 million deal with the Coyotes. So once again, it's a solid addition for Arizona, improve their defense a little bit. If they are able to if Arizona is not a playoff team next year and they're closing in around the deadline, they could possibly move Stecher again for a decent return. But for now, Stecher can probably improve their top four. So I really do like that move from the Arizona Coyotes. I think Stecher could definitely be a really good addition there. So definitely going to be interesting to see what else Arizona does today. Once again, we know they've looking to improve that team a little bit. They had Stecher, they had Durzi a little while ago. I do wonder if they try and add in the forward group as well. So going to be interesting to see. But I think the Stecher addition is really good. And if they're not in the playoffs, come the trade line, they can move him for a pretty good package. So definitely some pretty interesting signings there. There's been a couple more signings here. One from Tampa, one from Edmonton, one from Dallas. The Dallas Stars have signed Sam Steele, who was not qualified by the Minnesota Wild. He gets a 1-year deal at $850,000. That's going to be a really good deal for the Dallas Stars. Steele could definitely be a really good middle six, bomb six forward for the Stars, so that's a really good deal for Dallas. Kajula signs a 1-year, 2-way deal at $775,000 AAV with the Edmonton Oilers. So once again, another good depth addition for the Oilers, especially given the fact that they don't have too much cap space to work with. And then the Tampa Bay Lightning have signed Josh Archibald to a 2-year contract extension. They'll have an AAV of $800,000, and the deal will begin for the Bolts next year. Archibald was a really good bomb six forward over the past couple of years. So once again, Bolts lost Colton. They're most likely going to lose Killorn. They need to replace those guys with some cheaper options. They already got Sheary today, so getting a guy like Archibald, I think, is a really good addition for them. Kajula, good depth addition for the Edmonton Oilers. I think he can definitely be a really good bomb 6'4" for the Oilers. Sam Steele, another really good player. Steele, I think, should definitely really able to fit in that middle six role with the Stars. So once again, Dallas doing really good, signing Smith, Steele, and Duchesne to 1-year deals. Edmonton's been doing really good. They signed Brown to a league minimum deal. That was really good. They've now also gotten Kajula. So that's a really good addition. And then the Bolts now signed Sheary and Archibald, who should be good, two really good bomb six forwards. So some pretty good options there for the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars for some more pretty good signings there. Another one here, the Florida Panthers have brought back Lucas Carlson. The Panthers signed Carlson to a 1-year, 2-way deal. They'll have an AAV of $735,000. So that's a really good move, in my opinion. Once again, we know Florida's looking for defense. They've already brought over Mike Riley from Boston. They brought over Oliver Ekman-Larsson from Vancouver. Those two are both bought out. So they're able to sign cheaper deals with the Panthers. Now they've brought over Lucas Carlson, who was with the team this past year. So once again, really good signing there for the Panthers to improve their defense a little bit. But once again, still looking for some more activity either on the free agent market or a trade market. Most likely it'll probably happen later today, and I will expect once one of the bigger free agents like a Killorn or a Bertuzzi or a Comfort sign somewhere, then the trickle-down effect will start and the other guys will be able to sign for something else. But definitely going to be interesting to see some pretty good depth signings at the moment, some pretty good signings for some of these teams, but definitely going to be interesting to see where everyone winds up going. So definitely at this point we've had 73 total signings in just over 2.5 hours. So we're only going to be probably going to do this for about 20 more minutes and then going to be signing off for right now. Like I said, I'll probably go back to my Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday videos next week. And then I'll be doing some more smaller videos talking about more signings and trades that happen over the next couple of days. So definitely, once again, after I finish this video, stay tuned for those ones. I may even do a couple more for later today, so not exactly sure. Depends on what happens after I sign off. But it's going to be interesting to see as I definitely think there's going to be some more significant signings over the next couple of hours and over the next couple of days, and going to be interesting to see where everyone winds up. So definitely think that we're nowhere close to being done with free agency. There's still a ton of big names out there, so going to be interesting to see who else winds up signing today. There has been a couple of signings. As we were talking about earlier, Jason Zucker, solid player, middle six winger, makes a lot of people better. He has signed with the Arizona Coyotes. The Coyotes signed Zucker to a 1-year contract extension that will have an AAV of $5.3 million. So Zucker is able to basically replicate his cap hit from last year with the Penguins. He goes to Arizona. The Coyotes are able to make a really good addition here in Zucker. I think Zucker should definitely be a really good middle six forward, maybe playing with a guy like Clayton Keller in Arizona. And I think that's a really good signing. Zucker's a really good playmaker, and I think Arizona, with Zucker, that's a really good signing. We know Arizona's trying to get a little bit more competitive. That's a solid signing in my opinion. Then former Cap defenseman Matt Irwin has signed a 1-year league minimum deal with the Vancouver Canucks. So once again, another really good depth defenseman with Vancouver. Once again, trying to improve that team, bolster that blue line, really improve it. So I definitely do like that signing for the Canucks. League minimum deal. Irwin's a really good 7'6" defenseman, so that's a really good deal. But I really like the signing for the Arizona Coyotes. I think Zucker should definitely help the team. And just like Stetcher, if the team's not doing overly well and they're looking not going to make the playoffs next year, then they can move him at the deadline at half of his cap hit. So I definitely think that's a really good move for Arizona, and I think that really helps them improve in that top 9 for next year. So that's a really good signing in my opinion for Arizona, getting Jason Zucker. So once again, a couple of really good signings there for Arizona and Vancouver to continue to add to some of their depth signings that they've made today. Now we have another huge signing. Bunting, who was just missed out of my top 10. He was 13th on my free agent list. He has signed with the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes got Michael Bunting with a 3-year contract that will have an AAV at $3.5 million. So once again, nowhere. I thought Bunting could possibly get $4 or $5 million in the open market, so not as much as they thought he would get. But Carolina, like I said, they needed some really good bottom six forward help. They needed some really good players there. Bunting's going to be a really good player there. So in my opinion, Bunting, solid player at $3.5 million for 3 years. He should be a fantastic fit with the Carolina Hurricanes. So in my eyes, that's a really good signing in my opinion. And I think that's a really good deal for Bunting. So Bunting gets $3.5 million for the next 3 years. I think Arizona's definitely looked really good. I think Carolina's definitely looked really good. They needed some forward help. They needed some top six scoring, and I think Bunting really does help them. So that's a really good signing in my opinion for Carolina, and Bunting should really just go up there and continue to help in that top six. As for Arizona, I do really like the way that they've moved all their players. I think their strategy to rebuild is really good. I think moving all their players for picks and prospects, moving as many players as they can, and then rebuilding so have a really good younger team 3 to 5 years down the line, I think is really good. And I think Arizona was really the first team to do that. We've seen Chicago do that, and I think we could see a team like Philadelphia do that next. So I definitely do like the idea of Arizona's tanking methods, and I do think that really did help them. And I think in maybe 2 to 3 years, they should be a very good playoff contender, maybe even in a couple of years' time a cup contender. So I do like the idea of Arizona's tanking methods, and I do think them trying to be a little bit more competitive this year is really important for them. So definitely, I think I like the Zucker signing, I like the Stetcher signing, I like the fact that they're trying to be a little more competitive after tanking for a couple of years. So definitely been really couple really good signings. So at this point in time, those are some pretty good signings that have happened. I really do like Bunting in Carolina. I think he should be able to fit in really well in that second line. I like Zucker in Arizona. Archibald should be a really good addition, the Bolts bottom six. Caggiula, Steele in Dallas's bottom six. So I definitely do really like some of those moves. And I think for the most part, most of these signings today have been really good, and I don't think any of the teams are going to regret having them those signings. And I think we've seen most of the deals be 1 to 2 year deals. For the most part, that the cap's going to go up next year, and those players are going to be able to get a lot more money next year or the year after. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot more 1 to 2 year deals on cheaper contracts. But eventually, I think once the cap goes up, we'll see a lot more long-term extensions. But I think the longest extension on the day was Joonas Korpisalo with his 5-year deal. I don't think there was any other contract extensions that were longer than 5 years, and usually you always see at least one 7-6-5 year deal. So I do wonder if maybe one of those top-end free agents like a Dumba or a Bertuzzi or a Killorn or a Compher do wind up doing one of those, but I do think adding one of those guys, I do think it's quite surprising we haven't seen very many long-term deals at this point in time. So at this point in time, I really do think that I definitely do think that really it's quite surprising that we haven't seen so many long-term deals at this point in time. We've seen a couple of 3-year deals. Most of them have been 2 or 1 though, so it's definitely quite surprising. I think maybe next year we'll see a little bit more of a longer-term teams looking for longer-term deals. But it's going to be interesting to see. Definitely going to be interesting to see. Usually at this point in time, too, we would also have an extension in place. Like last year, I know the Tampa Bay Lightning signed all 3 of their key players, Sergachev, Chernak, and Cirelli, to long-term deals, long-term extensions. We haven't heard much about a guy like Rasmus Dahlin, who I was hearing some a couple weeks ago that he could be extended at some point early in the free agent period. Austin Matthews, same sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think there's going to be a couple of really big contract extensions, if not today, then over the next few days. That I think there's going to be a couple of teams out there who really want to get some players locked up long term. So going to be interesting to see. We have probably about 15 minutes left before I'll sign off here, and then we'll be going through some smaller videos discussing it later on, either today or later on. So going to be interesting to see, but I definitely like how many signings have been today, and I like all the pretty good signings so far. So at this point in time, we still have 76 signings at this point, so still pretty decent for the first 2 3/4 hours of the free agency. So I think it's a pretty good total. We'll see if by the third hour we can get to 80. I wonder if we can get 4 signings over the next couple of minutes, but it's definitely been a really interesting day today, and I definitely think that while there's still 7 players on my top 10 free agent board, I definitely do think that there's still going to be some more pretty big signings, if not today, then over the next couple of days. So going to be interesting to see. I definitely do think that there's going to be a couple more big signings whenever we are able to get some. So going to be interesting to see, but still 76 signings as of right now, 2 trades, not really huge trades, depth, more third pair defensemen, so not overly significant trades at this moment. Also not overly huge signings. Like we said, we're selling a couple of big signings. Dmitry Orlov with the Hurricanes. Zucker just signed with the Arizona Coyotes. Korpisalo was a pretty big deal with the Ottawa Senators. For the most part, though, we have had a lot of smaller signings. So going to be interesting to see what happens. Going to be interesting to see what some of those bigger time free agents like a Dumba or a Bertuzzi or Killorn or a Tarasenko or Compher wind up getting on their new deals. But going to be interesting to see, and I definitely do think it's going to be really, really cool to see all those guys and to see where they wind up signing. I definitely do think it's going to be interesting to see. I don't exactly know where any of those guys would be favorites to be landing. Compher is a solid center/winger. Killorn's a really good middle-six playmaker. Bertuzzi can score goals with the best of them in the top 6. So definitely I think there's going to be interest in all 3 of them, but I definitely do wonder where those 3 wind up signing. So going to be interesting to see, but definitely I think the 3 best forwards are still available. One of the better offensive defensemen is still available. Gostisbehere is also still available, so is Tarasenko. The best goalie in Jarry is still available, so definitely there's still a lot of players who are going to be signing in the not-too-distant future. But it's quite interesting to see that we haven't had so many signings in the last little bit. So at this point in time, we still have 76 signings, so still nothing really to discuss at this point in time. Once again, over here is my top 10 trade bait list. Top, I have DeBrincats, then there's Scheifele, then there's Hellebuck, and then Hanifin, and then Lindholm, and then down here is Nylander, Karlsson, Gibson, then you've also got Konechny and Pesce. So you've got 10 pretty good players I think could be dealt. Karlsson's being looked to be moved by the Sharks. Konechny's name's been around for the last little while. Nylander, if they can't work out a contract extension, I think they have to at least consider moving him. You've also got Gibson, who I think wants a fresh start out of Anaheim. You've also got Pesce, who, if he can't work out a contract extension with Carolina, would most likely be moved. Hanifin sounds like he's going to be moved at some point in time. It sounds like Lindholm is either going to sign an extension or be moved. Scheifele, Hellebuck, both guys who could easily be moved, as well as a guy like Alex DeBrincat, who a lot of people do suspect will be moved at some point in time. So going to be interesting to see where all these 10 guys wind up. I have a strong feeling at least majority of them, or like 6 or 7, will be moved before the start of the season, but it's going to be interesting to see when they get moved and who they get moved to. So going to be interesting to see, but I do think there's a good chance that at least most of my top 10 here will be moved in the not too distant future. So going to be interesting to see. Not too much time left here before I sign off. Going to be interesting to see if there's any more signings here. Like I said, I've seen some pretty good signings at this point in time. Some pretty good trades, but nothing really as of right now. So going to be interesting to see with some of these guys go. I do really think that Killorn's probably done in Tampa. Comfer, maybe he goes back to Colorado. I still think that he could be going elsewhere. As for Bertuzzi, I think he might have priced himself out of Boston. It's going to be quite interesting to see where he goes as well. But I think those 3 are going to be the next really big free agents to be signed. As 3 guys who I had closest to the top 10, who I didn't put in my top 10, in Blake Wheeler, Ryan O'Reilly, and Michael Bunting have all now signed. So Bunting, 3-year deal in Carolina, O'Reilly, 4-year deal in Nashville, and Wheeler, a 1-year deal in New York. So going to be interesting to see where the rest of these guys go. I think it's definitely going to be really interesting to see where all these guys go. There's still a couple of decent free agents. Amongst my 7 guys who still remain on my top 10, you've got guys like Jonathan Toews, Ryan Graves, you've got a guy like Scott Mayfield, you've got Patrick Kane, you've also got Kyler Yamamoto, Max Domi is another guy who I think could be a really good steal for someone. You've got Bergeron, does he sign with Boston or does he retire? You've got Brossoit, who's still a really good backup goaltender. Tatar's a really good middle 6 forward, so is Pius Suter. Klingberg's still a really good offensive defenseman. You've got a guy like Max Comtois, who didn't get a qualifying offer. Miles Wood. You've got a guy like Alex Kerfoot. You've got a guy like Kevin Shattenkirk. So there's still a lot of pretty good options out there, in my opinion, who I had going in the top 50. So there's still a ton of options out there, in my opinion. And I definitely think there's going to be some pretty good options out there, whether it be later today or in the future. Whether it be later today or in the future for possible free agent signings. So going to be interesting to see. I still think there's going to be some pretty good signings, some pretty good trades over the next little while. But I definitely do think this is really a really good signing so far. We do have one more signing here, and the Buffalo Sabres have signed depth forward Justin Richards. Richards, a center or / right winger, has signed a 1-year league minimum deal. Richards last year I'm pretty sure played a couple of games with the Montreal Canadiens at the NHL level, but was mostly an AHL player. I would expect Richards to most likely be a depth player at any AHL level for the Sabres as well. So most likely I would expect him to be a lower end player, but it's going to be interesting to see where Richards winds up going. I do think he could be a bottom 6 forward, but I would expect him to most likely wind up being a bottom end minor league forward for them. So going to be interesting to see. Only a couple minutes left before I sign off here. Once again, remember, I'm going to continue to do my videos once a week. I'm going to continue to do my videos 3 times a week, once on Tuesday, once on Thursday, once on Saturday, and with the free agency just getting underway, I'll continue to have smaller videos discussing signings and trades and stuff like that. So remember, don't forget to stay tuned, as I will be having lots of videos over the next little while, still discussing lots of things. But we have had a couple more signings here. We're now up to 80, so we did get to 80 before the 3-hour mark. The New York Rangers have signed bottom 6 forward Nick Bonino. Bonino was able to get a center/left winger for the. Bonino, who is a center/left winger, gets a 1-year contract extension with the New York Rangers at $800,000. Once again, that's a good depth addition for the Rangers. Bonino did really well last year with the Sharks and the Penguins, so I think it's a really good addition for the Rangers. Devin Cooley, who was a depth goalie for the Nashville Predators, signs in Buffalo. A 1-year $775,000 deal. That's another really good goalie, but if they have 2 goalies now, they've brought in Tokarski back again. They've got Cooley, who can both play AHL level. I do wonder if they're cooking up some sort of a goalie move in the not-distant future, whether it be Comrie or Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I do wonder if that's a possibility. And then the Nashville Predators have signed Cody Glass to a 2-year contract extension with an AAV of $2.5 million. So Glass really did really well last year in his second season in Nashville. He did fantastic. And I think long-term, he could easily still be a good second, third line center. I know he didn't do overly well in Vegas after they drafted him 6th overall, but he's really fitting really well with the Nashville Predators. I think long term he could be a good second or third line center for Nashville. So that's a really good signing for Glass in Nashville. The Sabres get some more goalie depth in Cooley, and the Rangers get another good bottom 6 forward in Bonino. So some really good depth additions there for the Rangers, for the Predators, and for the Sabres. Another signing here, a first over the day, and that is that the Tampa Bay Lightning have signed versatile forward Luke Glendening to a 2-year contract extension of an AAV of $800,000, and they will be kind of the start of now. So once again, just like Sheary, just like Archibald, Glendening is a good bottom 6 forward who can really help the team round out their bottom 6. We know that they've lost Killorn. We know they've lost Colton. We know that their bottom 6, really their depth scoring is really banged up right now. So getting guys like Sheary or Glendening or Archibald, who are good bottom 6 forwards and could really be really good producers, in my opinion, is a pretty good deal for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So good Sheary, they get Archibald, they get Glendening, they get some really good players there. So pretty good there. And then that's at the moment all we have signed. So 81 signings at this point in time for the 81 signings at this point in time. So far in the day, we've had 2 trades involving Miller going to the New Jersey Devils in exchange, including Colin Miller going to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a 2025 5th rounder, and the Washington Capitals acquiring Joel Edmondson at half of his contract retained from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for a 3rd and 7th. So we've had 2 pretty good deals. Nothing's too significant. None of my top 10 on my trade rate list have been moved up to this point in time. 3 of the guys on my top 10 free agent board have been signed by some teams. Anderson signed a 2-year deal with the Carolina Hurricanes. Orlov, who was 4th, signed a 2-year deal with the Carolina Hurricanes. And Brown, who was 6th, signed a 1-year deal with the Edmonton Oilers. So definitely, they've been a really good signings at this point in time for the Oilers and for the Canes, and we're going to have to wait and see where the other guys are. As it seems like at this point in time, we're most likely not going to get any sort of signings on those guys in the future, in the little bit of future. Another depth signing here for the San Jose Sharks. They signed right wing / center Ryan Carpenter to a 1-year league minimum deal. So Carpenter's a good bottom 6 forward. He played mostly in the AHL last year due to the fact that the Rangers had such a deep team and would need cap space. But I think Carpenter in San Jose could definitely be a good bottom 6 forward, whether it be playing on the 4th line or being a healthy scratch. I think Carpenter could definitely be a really good bottom 6 forward for San Jose. So some really good signings there for the Sharks. We only have 2 minutes left before we hit noon, then I'm going to be signing off. So definitely going to be interesting to see where all these other guys go. So it seems like for at least the time being, these top 10 trade players are going to remain there. 7 of the top 10 free agents are going to remain on my list, and it's going to be interesting to see where all these guys wind up going. So definitely going to be interesting to see. We have 82 signings. Once again, just a couple minutes left before I sign off. Once again, 2 trades so far today, not overly significant. I do wonder what everything else goes. I definitely think that they've had some pretty good additions so far this today. Some of the better teams, I think, Nashville's been really good at adding some players. The Canucks adding some more blue line players, I think, were really good. Detroit bringing in a guy like Sprong. Dallas has brought in some pretty good offensive players. I think Carolina's done really good bringing back their bottom pairing goalie, both their goalies, and adding some more depth on the defensive end. So and on the forward group in Bunting now too. So Arizona's look good, adding a couple of defensemen and forwards. I definitely like what most of these teams. Boston's bottom six looks a lot better now. Definitely, I think a lot of these teams have done some really good work so far in the free agency. But it's going to be interesting to see. I definitely think that we still have to wait a little bit before I give my winners and losers of free agency. But definitely, the first part of free agency has been so far pretty good. And I think at this point in time, it's been quite well. So I think this has been really good so far. Free agency-wise, definitely still a lot of key guys who still need to be signed. For the last time here, the amount of trades we've had is 2. Colin Miller went to New Jersey in exchange for a 2025 fifth-round pick from Dallas. And then the Capitals got Joel Edmondson at 50% of his contract retained in exchange for a 3rd and 7th-round pick. And at this point in time, we have 83 picks. Marian Stanichk, who was not brought back by the Dallas Stars, not given a qualifying offer, was given to the Seattle, just signed with the Seattle Kraken on a 1-year league minimum deal, who should be a good minor league forward for the Kraken and one of their first call-ups if they run into injury trouble. But it's 12 o'clock now, so I'm going to be signing off here. Don't forget to stay tuned. I will probably be doing more smaller videos discussing signings and trades over the next couple of days, probably maybe later today, maybe not, probably most likely tomorrow, Monday. Like I said, I'll have my regular videos Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday next week, so we're going back to our regular schedule. But definitely, thanks for tuning in here. Thanks for leaving your likes. Thanks for leaving your comments. Don't forget to subscribe. We're very close to 100 subscribers, so if you're checking out the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Sorry for the little delay in between of my videos, given the fact that the Wi-Fi crapped out for a little bit there, so sorry that there's 2 parts here, but I definitely do think that it was still really good. We got a lot of views here. Definitely do think that, love everyone's support. Thanks for tuning in. I definitely hope that we had some more signings over the next little while, and we can continue to update some of what will be pretty big, significant moves, as I still have 10 players on my top 10 trade bait list who have not been moved, and I still have 7 players on my top 10 free agent list who have not been signed in a new team yet. So definitely remember to like this video, remember to subscribe, try and get us to 100 subscribers, which we should hopefully get to in the not too distant future. If you like this video, I'll probably do a couple more smaller videos, regular videos though, not live ones anymore, and continue to watch all my videos on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. That's my usual scheduled videos, and I can't wait to see you guys all for the next ones, whenever they end up coming out. Can't wait to see you guys. Thank you for the support. See you guys soon.